It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the Prime Minister accuses Elon Musk of trying to whip up division in Britain over the murder of Henry Novak. Henry's parents have met the Prime Minister and the Conservative leader today, following angry scenes after the circumstances surrounding his death were revealed.
Musk again has been interfering in our politics in the last few days, trying to whip up division. That is not who we are in Britain.
As the row continues over the police's treatment of Henry, handcuffing him instead of checking for the injuries he repeatedly told them he had, we'll discuss claims that some officers from the force involved in his case felt controlled and pressured by diversity training. Also tonight, we go inside the courtroom as an alleged Scottish crime boss faces extradition to Spain. Stephen Lyons, who's accused of money laundering and drug trafficking, was brought from Bali to Amsterdam. His legal team say he's effectively been kidnapped by European authorities. Plus, after a week of special coverage of the maternity crisis, I'll speak to one of the Nottingham campaigners disappointed over the handling of two landmark reports due out this month. And a close encounter, Sky News speaks to Steven Spielberg as his new extraterrestrial blockbuster has its premiere in London. All that to come, and much more here on the UK Tonight. The Prime Minister has said today that he will be unflinching in taking whatever action is required to right the wrongs in the Henry Novak murder after meeting his family in Downing Street. The 18-year-old was stabbed to death in Southampton, and after his killer was jailed for life this week, footage taken from police body cameras showed officers detaining Henry rather than treating his injuries, sparking violence in the city. Well, this was the scene in Downing Street earlier this evening as Henry Novak's family left Number 10 following their meeting with the PM, a meeting that lasted nearly an hour. His parents say they don't want Henry's death to stir up hatred, a message echoed by our political leaders. Kemi Badenoch calling for parties to work together to rebuild trust in police. And Sir Keir Starmer hitting out at tech billionaire Elon Musk for his comments on Henry's murder.
Musk again has been interfering in our politics in the last few days, trying to whip up division. That is not who we are in Britain. In Britain, we are reasonable, tolerant people. When we have a terrible case like Henry's case, Henry Novak, we react calmly, as his family have done.
Henry's treatment by the officers who attended the scene has prompted difficult questions for the police and fresh claims of two-tier policing. And reports today suggest that some officers from the force involved in Henry's case felt pressured to adopt certain ideas following mandatory diversity training. Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is standing by in Westminster Forest this evening. John.
Well, the meeting began at 5 o'clock and it was just before 6 p.m. when we saw the family leaving. It was Henry's father, Mark Novak, his mother, Lucy Ross, I beg your pardon, and stepmother, Katie Novak. And they went there, obviously, with a list of concerns and calls, really, for action from the government. When Mark Novak spoke outside Southampton Crown Court on Monday afternoon, he was very critical of the fact that Henry's killer was able to stab him with what was essentially a ceremonial knife, blade, for religious observance, as a phrase the Home Secretary used in the Commons this week. 21 centimetres long, Mr Novak said. So, calls for tougher knife crime laws were obviously made by the family, so in the hope that this sort of crime would not happen again. And of course, the criticism that there's been all week of the police handling and the suggestion that diversity training meant that, in the words of Chris Philp in the Commons this week, the police were more concerned with accusations of racism than tackling a violent assault. Now, after the meeting, the Prime Minister spoke about how he was profoundly humbled to meet the family, and he talked about being moved to learn more about Henry. He talked about his kindness, warmth, love of football, and The Prime Minister said there was no doubt that Henry had a bright future ahead of him, which had been cruelly stolen from him in appalling circumstances. And the Prime Minister said this: Henry deserves a legacy that goes beyond this awful tragedy, and I'm committed to making that happen. I'm determined that we do everything in our power to prevent other families from suffering such a devastating loss. The Prime Minister said there are difficult questions that need to be answered about the way the police handled Henry's murder. The Independent Office for Police Conduct are investigating. We will be unflinching, the Prime Minister said, in taking whatever action is required to right the wrongs in this case. And he went on to say it's our duty now to ensure that lessons are learned, justice is delivered, and we choose unity and progress over division and hatred. That's the only way to honour Henry's memory. A reference there at the end to the tone set by the likes of Nigel Farage, with whom the Prime Minister clashed in a fiery exchange in Prime Minister's questions yesterday. Now, earlier, the family met Kemi Badenoch, and this was Kemi Badenoch's reflection after that meeting.
Politicising these issues is when one party tries to get political gain out of it. The only people who should gain now are young people across our country whose safety we're all concerned about, trust in the police being improved, and the family getting closure and a meaningful outcome after the loss of Henry's life. It is very important to depoliticise situations, and the way we do that is by having politicians working together to get the right results, to get a solution, not just complaining about everything. We need to start talking about solutions.
Well, tonight, Nigel Farage, who earlier in the week talked about the reaction to the killing should be pure cold rage, I beg your pardon, pure cold rage, a phrase that angered his political opponents. He said he'd been in touch with the family and hoped to meet them. Nothing is arranged yet, as far as we know. But these meetings, clearly, with the Prime Minister and Kemi Badenoch, will obviously have been easier for the family, given the tone that the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition used in the Commons this week. It's been a rare moment of almost unity from the two main party leaders, the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition. In Prime Minister's questions, the PM thanked Kemi Badenoch for what he called her approach and her tone. So they have held meetings. We await the government's response to the calls from the family for tougher laws and perhaps changes to police guidance and so on. But he stressed we will be unflinching in taking whatever action is required to right the wrongs in this case.
John, thank you, John Craig, with the latest there from Westminster. Let's bring in now policing commentator Graham Whettone. Graham, good to see you this evening. Thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about the case of Henry Novak. I was looking at some information today. Hampshire and Isle of Wight police, the force caught up in this, claimed back in 2022 that being anti-racist, ethical and inclusive is top of our agenda. And the sort of assumption being made today is that this is being seen as overcompensation by a police force that did not want to, by any stretch of the imagination, be seen through the lens of institutional racism, an accusation, you know, levelled at police.
Yeah, even Sarah, again, accusations been levelled over decades. I was in policing when we first had DEI training, diversity training. It came in the wake of the Stephen Lawrence murder in the early 90s. I can remember going on that course and being told that we should treat everyone the same. And then a couple of years later, we had new diversity training coming that said we treat people according to their needs. And clearly, from what you just read out, some forces are now actually taking it as a priority. The priority of policing is saving life, preserving life, and preventing crime, then detecting offenders if crime's committed. It's not difficult. It's very basic stuff. If crime's been committed, identify the crime, identify the offenders, and arrest them, put them before the courts. It's overtaken now as a priority, not to be exclusive, not to be discriminatory or show any form of racism at all. And that's become the priority for many forces. And for younger officers, this has been drummed into them in their training. I know of training courses that last about 17 weeks. The first 2 or 3 weeks, total 2 or 3 weeks, is just dealt with DEI training. They don't go into legislation or police powers or police policies. It's about being non-discriminatory and using the right language in the right areas.
Yeah, I mean, DEI training, diversity, equity and inclusion. Is this just a case of the police getting their training wrong? There is a place for diversity, equity and inclusion in the police. Of course there is. But the way they've gone about it and the emphasis given, you know, the number of investigations into police forces around the country and famously the Metropolitan Police, is it just the training that's been done wrong? Is there a place for DEI in the police force? Because, the way some people are talking about it today is that it has to be done away with.
No, I wouldn't do away with it. I think there has to be, you have to understand, police is about understanding your community that you're policing. It's understanding the people you're policing. And again, without fear or favour, so you need to understand them to treat them without fear or favour, but apply the law. Apply the law evenly and proportionately, but apply it to the community you're policing. So there has to be some element, some understanding of the diverse communities we are now policing. The country is very diverse. We have integrated communities living, working together, very well in some places. So policing has to understand that, but it's become almost like the focus or the prime concern for many forces, and the training's become such an issue, it's become such a big thing that it's taken on a life of its own, to the detriment, I think, of understanding policing, understanding the law and your powers as a police officer. And for younger officers, and again, the front line now is predominantly young in-service officers. I saw a stat, I think it was about a year ago, the average length of service for officers dealing with 999 calls, so those responding to calls like we saw in Hampshire with Henry, have got less than 5 years policing experience. And that sort of incident just cries out for someone with some experience, some understanding of dealing with people and just slowing things down. You know what you've been told, you know what you can see when you get there, but just slow things down and then reassess it. Just literally do that decision model that everybody's taught in policing. Just run through that a couple of times before you almost go by the book. I've got an allegation of a racial incident. The policy is positive arrest policy. I must arrest. If I must arrest, then I must handcuff. Then you almost press the pause button and start to reassess the information you've been given.
Yeah, Graham, do you think there's going to be a big shake-up in how the police deal with diversity, equity and inclusion now? Because the National Police Chiefs Council said it was reviewing its own anti-racism guidelines, which advise officers to treat black and white suspects differently. It says that racial equity doesn't mean treating everyone the same or being colourblind. I mean, it's been called clumsy today at best. At worst, the policing minister has called it wrong. Do you think there's going to be a big shift?
I think they'll have to reassess it, review it. This has been asked for years by those of us who have gone through the training. A lot of it's just, I use a phrase colloquially, like word salad. They just show big words at you to make it sound like you're getting something really innovative. And in reality, you're not. It's policing without fear or favour. It's policing to people's needs, treating people fairly but evenly and in a balanced way, but applying the law. Apply the law to everybody in the way you would do normally. So understanding your communities, understanding the diversity that's amongst them, understanding any equality issues, etc., inclusivity issues. But your primary role and focus is one, preserving life, and two, then preventing crime or identifying people that are committing crimes. That's the basic role of policing. Take it back to basics. There's been too much, I think, in some police training. And dare I say, there's not been enough training. But once they're trained initially, in their initial recruit stages, it's very, very difficult to then abstract them, to actually give them an update on it and see how they're getting on with it. It's almost like interpreting, dare I say it, things learnt in the classroom into real-life scenarios. And you learn policing by dealing with real-life scenarios, not by sitting in the classroom being told how you should approach people.
Yeah, I mean, Graham, you've seen that body cam footage. I've seen it. A lot of our viewers have seen it. And what strikes you is when police officers arrive on the scene, it's a calm scene. There's, they're walking into a situation that is fairly settled for them to do their job. What should they have done in that instance? What would have been a textbook response to what they walked into?
Well, again, you could have a textbook response, but quite often that doesn't survive any sort of like first initial. The book says you do it this way, and that's part of my point. Sometimes the book isn't always the right way to do things. I watched it once deliberately because I wanted to view it almost like being from when you first walk into that sort of scene. There was a calmness about it to a certain degree. It is part of an investigation, so I won't go too deeply into it. But it just seemed that again, without knowing the depth of experience the officers attended, what information they had. And I've said before, you can't just police or judge incidents on what you see on a body-worn video clip. There was other information they were given on the way to the call when they first arrived that we haven't seen or been party to yet. So there have been other aspects that will need to be taken into consideration. But just looking at that body-worn video clip, it's really disturbing, it's concerning, and it just seems they've almost like gone down a policy route of racially motivated offence has been reported. There's information now given that supports that first information. So your course of action is following almost like a flowchart. It's positive arrest policy, arrest, handcuff, and then almost slow things down and then reassess what you've done. I'd like to have seen that done first. But I think, as I said, officers have been told this is the way you have to deal with these allegations, and you must do things in this format, in this step-by-step process, or else you'll be subject to discipline. You'll be judged on what you have and haven't done, and how you've spoken to people. And I think younger officers are terrified of making a mistake, so they literally just follow, as you said, follow it by the book. And sometimes policing cannot follow the book. You have to judge it as you see and hear it yourself.
Graham, really appreciate you coming on this evening and the benefit of your expertise and insight. Graham Wettain there, policing commentator. An IOPC investigation is now underway. Serious questions for Hampshire Police Force to answer, and the Prime Minister said he will be unflinching in pursuit of righting the wrongs in what happened in the case of Henry Novak. Now, a man has been sentenced for life with a minimum term of 30 years for the murder of a teenage boy who was hit by a car as he was walking down a street in Sheffield. Sky's Molly Malone joins me with this story. What can you tell us, Molly?
Well, the judge called the death of 16-year-old Abdullah both senseless and shocking. He was an innocent young teenager who investigators said was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time when he was killed. A year ago today in Sheffield, he'd been walking along the pavement when he was hit and killed by an Audi A3, a powerful sports car, said the judge, when the driver, the murderer, was driving down the wrong side of a busy road. Now, Abdullah was the unintended victim. Instead, the driver, the murderer, had intended to target 3 people that were on bikes, essentially over what was described as a revenge attack. He was trying to target them over a dispute about an e-bike, but instead he hit and killed 16-year-old Abdullah. Now, Zulkarnain Ahmed was sentenced today to life in prison for his murder with a minimum term of 30 years, and his brother Arman Ahmed, who was a backseat passenger in the car, was sentenced to 17 years for manslaughter. The judge said that he was in the back of the car looking for those intended targets. The pair had both tried to flee the scene. They'd driven some 250 miles from Sheffield to Dover where they were arrested, and Zulkarnain had been Googling countries where criminals couldn't be extradited back to the UK, so the judge pointed to a sense of premeditation in what they were planning with their intended targets. I want to tell you a little bit more about Abdullah, though. He'd only arrived in Sheffield just 2 months before he was killed on June the 4th last year, a year ago today, and he'd come to the UK from Yemen. His father said he'd come in a search for safety, for a better life, and the court heard how he was an optimistic person that was always smiling. He was eager to learn and to integrate into the community here in the UK, leaving behind in Yemen what was described as an impossible life of war, gangs and weapons, and yet having moved to the UK, his life was taken through no fault of his own in a revenge attack gone wrong and an argument over an e-bike by a man who prosecutors said was using his car as a weapon.
Molly, thank you very much. Molly Malone there with the details of that case. Thanks, Molly. Lawyers for a suspected crime boss from Scotland who was extradited from Bali to face trial in Europe claims that he's been kidnapped by authorities. Stephen Lyons, who's wanted in Spain, has appeared in court in Amsterdam accused of running a global money laundering and drug trafficking empire. Our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillis has this report.
Paraded for all to see, is this the face of one of Europe's most powerful drug cartels? Stephen Lyons, the Scottish man accused of being a global crime empire boss. They call him a mafia fugitive. Arrested in Bali on an international arrest alert, Spain is the country that wants its hands on him. They say his crime clan moved millions through shell companies, cryptocurrency, drug trafficking and laundering cash from Glasgow to Spain, Dubai, Turkey and Asia. But the next chapter came here, to this court in Amsterdam. Lyons deported and sent here, the Spanish wanting him extradited, but not without a fight.
Basically, the Guardia Civil has kidnapped him from Bali. They choose the beneficial environment, the Netherlands, with a positive extradition climate. This is in reality a secretive extradition, basically kidnapping of my client. This is in cooperation with the Spanish authorities done. See the picture with the police in Bali, where they all stand on the picture with their thumbs up.
Spain raided properties linked to Lyons, mountains of evidence collated, including a stash of images showing mutilated bodies. And now Lyons himself spoke, a courtroom tale voiced by an actor, from a man seemingly struggling.
I feel terrible. I look terrible, not had my medication. I haven't seen a single person apart from lawyers and people from church. I haven't spoken to my family in almost 7 weeks. My condition is not good.
But prosecutors are not buying it.
I asked the court for the extradition to take place. The facts are clear to me. Money laundering, participation in a criminal organisation. The person sought by Spain and arrested was based on a red notice.
The hearing here in Amsterdam may have felt fairly clinical, procedural moment, but it is a significant cog in this international spectacle. Lyons was sat here surrounded by 3 armed police officers. There will be no immediate ruling on what happens next. Instead, the panel of judges here in the Netherlands are expected to decide within weeks, a moment that will shape what comes next. And this is where the origins of this organised crime bloody feud began. Glasgow. Clashes between the Lyons and rival Daniels family, including shootings and an execution in this supermarket car park. But this has now gone global and the Spanish want their man. Conor Gillis, Sky News in Amsterdam.
So to come on the UK tonight, the student failed by medics in the final days of her life. And I'll hear from one of the Nottingham campaigners disappointed over the handling of 2 landmark maternity reports. coroner has ruled that neglect contributed to the death of a normally fit and healthy 20-year-old student. In 2023, Libby Inston was wrongly diagnosed during 3 visits to urgent care, despite days of vomiting and severe abdominal pain. She died as a result of an infection on her small intestine. Her boyfriend has been telling Sky News that she was failed in the final days of her life after being made to feel like a time waster by medics. Sky's Barnaby Papadopoulos spoke to him.
So this was when me and Libby went to Rome together. So it was our first holiday together. We absolutely loved it.
Libby Instone was a student from Teesside who dreamt of becoming a lawyer and moving in with her boyfriend. She died aged 20, just days after developing severe abdominal pains that were never properly examined. According to a coroner, there were gross failures in her care.
It felt like she was sort of just another name on a list, rather than treating her as an individual. And Libby, because of her age and because of how she usually was just sort of treated as a time waster. And ultimately, because she didn't receive the treatment she needed, she died.
Libby was fit and healthy. The pain and bouts of sickness emerged suddenly after a birthday trip to London with Theo. Libby was admitted to this hospital 3 times in just over 24 hours before her death. She wasn't properly examined, she wasn't properly cared for, and a coroner has now ruled that omissions in her care here contributed to her death. She was told she had gastroenteritis, but that was wrong. She'd actually suffered an infarction of the small intestine, a medical emergency when blood supply becomes blocked. But as her symptoms worsened, efforts weren't taken to re-examine her.
And at no point did anyone stop to think, hang on, we've got someone who's come in 3 times. You know, people don't go to hospital and wait for hours and hours if they're not really concerned. And they just were working off a diagnosis of gastroenteritis that was actually incompatible with the symptoms Libby was presenting with.
Shortly before she died, Libby's family had to wait to visit her in hospital as staff were watching the Women's World Cup. She was discharged and collapsed at home. She died less than a week after being taken ill. Hospital staff initially said they wouldn't have done anything differently, but now the NHS Trust which runs it has apologised and accepted the findings of the inquest. In a statement, a spokesperson said, "A thorough review of the circumstances surrounding this case has identified shortcomings in the care provided to Libby and her family. We are committed to learning from this tragic case and have implemented measures to strengthen process to reduce the risk of similar incidents in the future."
Whenever I think of it, it just makes me smile. It makes me happy because we did have such a brilliant time. And although that final sort of week of her life was awful, you do just look back and focus on who she was and how she presented to everybody that knew her.
The coroner's findings represent validation for Theo, who has long believed that Libby was neglected in the last days of her life. But they can't bring her back, and nor do they hold directly accountable those who failed in their duty of care towards her. Barnaby Papadopoulos, Sky News in Hartlepool.
Well, Barnaby's with me now in the studio, and this is such an upsetting catalogue of failures for young Libby. So many things went wrong, and the hospital initially just said they did nothing wrong.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So if we go back to August 2023, it is true that the NHS was under a lot of pressure. There were high waiting lists, there was a big backlog, and in the, some of my reporting, I've seen that in this case. So at one time, Libby was in A&E for 5 hours, at another time for 7 hours. But none of that should distract from the huge failures in basic care in this case. Her stomach was not properly examined. Her sickness was not properly recorded. The chief medical officer for the NHS Trust in question, actually, in the course of that inquest, said there had been a degree of confirmation bias in terms of her diagnosis, her essentially stomach flu. And that wasn't examined even when the symptoms were wrong, and it wasn't examined even though Libby was a healthy, very fit 20-year-old with no prior history of such problems. So massive failures. But yeah, I think the most shocking thing about this case in its totality is that it's alleged that after Libby died, one member of staff said, "I thought she was a time waster." The hospital didn't admit that anything had gone wrong for months. In fact, after she died, they said they'd done everything right. And the reason that is so disturbing is after a case like this, you expect there not only to be accountability, but you expect there to be some learning, an effort to make sure something like this never happens again. And that didn't happen. This was almost 3 years ago, and the inquest has only just been heard. So you can imagine just how distressing that has all been for Libby's loved ones. But it's also disturbing, I think, for all of us who rely on the NHS.
Yeah, very much so. Barnaby, thank you for bringing us Libby's story. Really important to share that. As you said, you know, when things go wrong, learning should happen. Thank you. Right, still to come here on the UK Tonight. We'll have more from our week of coverage on the maternity crisis. I'll be hearing from a campaigner disappointed with the handling of 2 Landmark reports out this month. This week, I have been at University Hospital Coventry for special coverage looking into maternity care here in the UK. We've heard about the pressures facing both staff and families on labour wards. We also have heard many stories of hope and high standards of care. On Tuesday, I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to witness a C-section with Liliana and Pedro, and they allowed me to join them for the birth of their daughter. We'll bring you some of that procedure. Tell me why you decided to have an elective C-section.
Because I have already 2 other girls. They all was delivery, natural delivery. But my second one came too fast. And because of that, I've been having postpartum. I had complications like pain. My pelvic floor wasn't good after that. So I've just decided I don't want to make it worse.
Pressure in.
Yeah, that's
all normal, okay?
Okay.
Special delivery on the way. Oh, congratulations. Wow. Donna, is that too high for you? Hello.
Towels on you, okay, just to keep you both nice and warm.
Well, as we know, not all parents are as fortunate, with traumatic outcomes on the rise. The government's newly appointed maternity advisor knows that all too well. I spoke to Michelle Welsh last night as she promised to work with families to fix a broken system.
They cannot be inquiries or reports that are just left on the shelf. This is about action. This is about taking all of those things that have been learned over the years and what families are saying, what midwives are saying and what obstetricians are saying that are working on the front line and turning them into big, bold policies. We're talking about real continuity of care. I had over 50 midwives involved in my care. I had to keep retelling my story about all of my health needs and my medication. That is not unusual. We are talking about accountability, and when I talk about accountability, when things go wrong, giving people the confidence for working on front line to say, this has gone wrong, I'm really sorry about this, this is what happened. But at the same time, when things start to go wrong, in a trust, we need to have the ability to go in there to see what is happening, to make sure that we do not see and relive what has happened in Nottingham, what has happened in Shrewsbury and Telford, and we don't have more inquiries like the ones in Leeds. Because what has happened is women and babies are being systematically failed, those working on the front line are being systematically failed, and unless we make some big changes, that will continue, and I will hold absolutely everyone to account on that.
The National Maternity Advisor speaking to us last night. Well, two landmark reports are both out this month, and they are being billed as a watershed moment in maternity care. However, the families involved are concerned about the timing of the publication of these reports. They're coming out within a week of each other, leaving the families fearing that the issues they have raised won't be given proper consideration. Well, we can speak now to Molly Sutton. Her son Rupert was left severely disabled following complications both during and after his birth. Molly, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's really important to have your voice as part of this because you are one of the families in Nottinghamshire that has been giving evidence to the Donna Ockington inquiry that is out later this month. And what we're hearing is that the national inquiry, the report by Baroness Amos, will be out less than a week later. Why are you so concerned about that, Molly?
So, as families, we've fought so hard not only to get Donna here, we've fought a lot to get Donna here, and we've finally been able to express our stories and our experiences and everything that's happened to us. And for that to be now, it feels kind of like we've been sideswiped, and that's not what this review was meant to be for.
Molly, when you say you and other families are fighting, you know, let's just talk about the scale of that fight. You're not alone. There are over 2,500 families that have taken part in the Donna Ockington review into this trust in Nottingham, and it has taken you years to get to this point. Just for people watching, you know, we have spoken about countless investigations into NHS trusts when it comes to failing maternity care. There have been subsequent reports, recommendations, and nothing has been done. But what people are hearing is that this report that's coming back concerning you, your family and others is going to be nothing like we've seen before, the scale of what's gone on here. Why is it so important that this report gets undivided attention of the public and those that can make change?
A lot of us, there's 2,500 families, and to be a part of the Ockington review, you have to have a certain level of harm. And we're not talking, you know, quite minor things. We're talking our babies have now died. Our babies are severely brain injured. Our mothers have died. our families are torn apart, marriages have failed because of the catastrophic harm that has happened to us as families. And for that to finally come to light, and for people to actually see what actually can go on. And we all hope when we're pregnant to come out with a beautiful little bundle of joy, and we have all these big dreams and hopes for them in the future, but some of us aren't even coming out with a car seat with a baby in it. And it is so imperative that we get this right, and this is what Don has done with such a lengthy it's taken years. For it started in 2022, and I believe that personally a review that has only taken a matter of months is not going to be the same standard as what Donna has done for us as families.
Molly, you'll have heard my interview with the National Maternity Advisor yesterday. We just played a bit of it just then, and something she said struck me during that interview as I was about to talk to you is that, you know, you and other mums, partners, families are re-traumatised every time you have to tell your story, but you do it because you don't want other people to be in your position. So I'm not going to ask you to repeat your story, but you essentially had a healthy baby in Rupert in pregnancy, but it was labour and the first 4 weeks where you felt the trust let you down, abject neglect. Rupert, there he is there, beautiful boy, is now living as a severely disabled child. He cannot walk, he cannot talk, and he has the mental age of a 4-month-old baby. I'm looking at that happy face and I'm thinking of a story I was told yesterday at Coventry Hospital where a mum said, when these outcomes happen to families, you don't want it to happen to others, and you feel thankful that a child who is left severely disabled by care comes into a loving family. Not all children are so lucky. And I just want you to talk about Rupert, because this is why you're doing this. This little boy, your boy on the screen here, gorgeous.
He's incredible. He is the absolute light of our lives. And out of all the families who have experienced such harm, I feel very lucky to still have my boy. I say that I'm one of the lucky ones every single day, because I am. You know, look at him, he's incredible. But yeah, it's hard because, like I said, it's not what we imagined, but it's what we take. And we're very, very lucky to have our baby man. He's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, giving birth is life-changing. And for many women, there are good outcomes. But for too many women, the outcome isn't good. And it is life-changing for a completely different reason. And as you said, you're Rupert's mum. He's your boy, you know, that's just how it is. That's what's happened. But it's the accountability, isn't it? And I think that is what is so important for families with this report. It is having your stories heard. They're in black and white. And for you to then go, well, here it is. Who is going to put their hand up and take responsibility for that? And what is going to change? What do you want, Molly? What do you want to change?
Well, like you said, it's absolutely life-changing what happens to us. And a lot of us in the review, because of the opt-out process, a lot of people didn't even know that they were harmed. And because we've always been told, you know, it's a very much a singular event, this isn't a thing that happens all the time.
You think you're the only one at the time, don't you?
Exactly, we do. And that's why I think I came into it quite late, because I was in denial a lot of the time. Even though my labour experience was horrific, but a lot of families didn't even know that they were harmed until they came into
Molly? How did you feel, Molly, when you were part of 2,500 families? That's the scale of what is under review at the University Hospital Nottingham Trust.
I felt left alone. I didn't want anybody else to be in this with me. I never want anybody to be in these shoes. I wouldn't ever want that. But I feel less alone. I feel I've made a lot of friends through it, and we support each other. And we have a lot of support, which is absolutely brilliant. And this is why Donna Rockenden's reviews are so incredible.
Molly, I'm not sure what can be done at this stage, but would the appeal be to move the date of this national report coming out. It's an independent inquiry. Obviously, the two don't work in tandem. The dates have fallen like this. But would that be your appeal? Move the date?
Yeah. There's been it's been pushed back so many times. Like, it was supposed to come out in December and then a couple of times in the spring. Why now? You know, with the old Secretary of West Streeting, he said he's not going to do anything to us without us. And this feels very much like he's doing it to us. With only days apart, it's, you know, we're going to be holding our children a lot more closer. We're all going to be very upset. We're going to be going to gravesides. We don't need to be even more traumatised just a few days after. We just want some breathing space, and I think that's the least we deserve.
Molly, listen, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. Your bravery after what you've been through, to still be living through this when you just want to get on with the rest of your life, to be fighting for justice and for change for others. It's truly commendable. It's remarkable. Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you. Right, still to come on the programme after the break, we'll have a look at the day's sports news. Liverpool have revealed their new head coach. We'll take a look at what he'll bring to Anfield, and a close encounter. Sky News has been speaking to Steven Spielberg. He's brought his new extraterrestrial blockbuster to London for its premiere.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear-gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Durman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
Hello, and thank you for watching tonight on The Wrap. We will be joined by the very best commentators to explain the how and the why.
He did know what he was doing.
Both agree on that, can we?
No.
No. Can expect more analysis.
This is going to get deeper. I think it's going to end up with Russia.
Is war inevitable? What he's interested in is a deal.
That doesn't rule out strikes.
I disagree. And laughs along the way.
Plus, a look at tomorrow's headlines. The Wrap. Everything wrapped up for you from 10.
James is here to take a look at the day's sport. And in the past hour, Liverpool have confirmed a new head coach. Who is it? And tell me all about him.
Andoni Iraola, he's the former Bournemouth manager, and Liverpool have acted really swiftly because they sacked Arne Slot on Saturday, and Iraola was one of the outstanding candidates available because he left Bournemouth at the end of the season. He spoke to a number of different clubs, including AC Milan, Bayer Leverkusen. He's highly in demand, but Liverpool have got their man, and they've come at a time where they need some stability. They need to return to winning silverware as well. He had an incredible season with Bournemouth last year. They finished 6th, meaning they qualified for Europe for the first time in their history. And they ended last season with a 17-match unbeaten run. Incredible for a club the size of Bournemouth, arguably the smallest club in the Premier League. But he's built up a really impressive CV over the course of the last few years across Europe. The big question mark is, Can he manage a big club, Liverpool, arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world, and he's not won major silverware. Next season, Liverpool will be expected to win silverware. They'll be expected to challenge in the Premier League and the Champions League. So a huge job for him, but he's done really well to get this position.
So fans of the Premier League will know him, will know Bournemouth because they've done so well. But for those who don't, what style of football does he play? What will he try and do at Anfield?
Well, Liverpool fans were really frustrated last season because the football wasn't great. The atmosphere was so flat at Anfield as well, which was strange considering how much money they spent last summer and considering they won the Premier League title. There were a number of different factors which meant that this season wasn't as successful under Arne Slot, but they wanted to go into this season with a realistic chance of winning things. They feel they can do that under Areola. And it was really interesting, Mohamed Salah spoke before his final game as a Liverpool player and said that they need to return to playing the heavy metal football, which we saw under Jurgen Klopp. And that's one thing we'll get under Andoni Areola, high-intensity football. The football will be brilliant to watch if the players buy into his methods, because they're going to have to work extremely hard. So it's going to be a tough job for Areola to convince these players to play this style of football. And he's got a big job as well at adjusting to life after Mohamed Salah and Andy Robertson. And there's two players who Liverpool signed for more than £100 million last summer. Alexander Isak, Florian Wirtz, neither had a brilliant first season at Liverpool, so he'll be expected to get the very best out of those players. That means Liverpool, Manchester City, you conclude Manchester United with Michael Carrick going into next season with new managers. It's going to be absolutely fascinating to see.
I'm excited already. We haven't even started the summer, have we?
And we've got the World Cup to look forward to as well.
Exactly. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Right, what else is coming up in the sport? Let's have a look, shall we?
Well, let's get to Lords now.
Brendan, we haven't spoken to you since the end of the World Cup, after which there was a review. Lots of things seemed up in the air at that stage. Do you think you're fortunate to be given the chance to complete the job you started?
That wasn't really up to me. I was keen to carry on in the job because I did feel as if, you know, we've made some significant progress in the last 4 years, but the job isn't done. There's still some growth to go. I think our best days are in front of us as a cricket side. I think a lot of the stuff that we've developed over the last 4 years will allow us to shape our side as we move forward. I think, yes, we do need to make some improvements. Yes, we do need to become a smarter cricket team when the game's at its on a knife edge or the pressure's at its highest. But don't throw out what's worked previously, what's given us the base to be able to start to think about finishing off this product and making a cricket team which can compete against the best teams in the world consistently.
We'll come on to what those improvements might be, but from the point of which the review announced that the management stays in place to now, we've had 6 rounds of championship games, and given so much was up in the air, so many places perhaps up for grabs, would it have been helpful to be here for some of that cricket?
Look, we're very fortunate in being with English cricket that we have a very broad, very vast amount of people that can assist us in making sure that we identify every single player, or no player falls through the cracks. We have, from our county inside.
Steven Spielberg's new science fiction film, Disclosure Day, is premiering tonight in London. It stars Emily Blunt, Josh O'Connor and Colin Firth. The film focusing on the possible existence of extraterrestrial life and the cover-ups and conspiracies that go with it. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer has this from the red carpet.
Steven Spielberg's fascination with extraterrestrial life has produced some notable cinematic classics.
One of the most beloved movies of all time.
But forget about the nostalgia of E.T. or the awe of Close Encounters. With Disclosure Day, the Oscar-winning filmmaker brings that theme firmly into the present. An A-list cast joining the man himself on the red carpet in London.
I have a big imagination. I believe there's a lot of interesting things happening right now in the world, and I took that, combined that, and told a story.
It sent me weak at the knees, the thought of meeting Steven Spielberg, let alone being in a film of his. Yeah, it was a very surreal and special experience.
Of course. I mean, I screamed when they said that he wanted to meet me, and I was like, when? Now? I'll just drop everything. And so I met him, and it was a surreal thing because he built our imagination as children. Like I don't remember many movies from a child, but I remember his.
Our relationship with the unknown is something the filmmaker has repeatedly returned to.
In an era shaped by questions over transparency and misinformation, the film leans into today's real-world debates around public trust, government secrecy, and who gets to decide what we do and don't know.
How will disclosure change us?
Spielberg has said he feels Disclosure Day is more grounded in reality than his earlier Alien movies. The 2017 reporting on Pentagon UFO investigations and subsequent public hearings reigniting his interest. And while President Trump directed US agencies to declassify and publish government files related to UFOs back in February, so far what's been released hasn't exactly proven there's anything out there.
Everybody with smartphones that are eyewitness to extraordinary things, they can back up their eyewitness statements with video, and this is happening more and more and more. And I thought, after all of that, this is a good time to get back into the subject matter.
I'm frightened.
Early critics are calling this the filmmaker's strongest work in decades. If audiences respond in the same way, Spielberg may have delivered yet another cultural touchstone for the genre. Almost half a century on from Close Encounters, that would be quite an achievement. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
The unsettled and rather cool conditions will continue into next week, but it's looking drier and warmer later in the month. Some blustery showers this evening, some heavy and prolonged, but many eastern parts will dry up. You can expect further showers overnight, mainly for the north and west, but the brisk wind will ease. It's going to turn cooler than previous nights. Tomorrow morning will bring showers, but they'll be lighter and more scattered than recently. In fact, much of central and eastern England looks fine and dry.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
That's all from the UK tonight. Up next, it's The World with Yalda Hakim. We'll see you on Monday night at 8 o'clock.